Thank you for your kind patience. Let us now begin session number 1. The medical innovation, Japan's an underappreciated potential and global human capital circulation.
Moderator は
Moderator from the Stanford University Research Associate, Stanford Silicon Valley and New Japan project leader, Mr. Kenji Kushida. He is acting as the moderator.
Panelists は
Panelists from the Healios and Keita, we have Chief Executive Officer and President and Dr. Tadashi Kagimoto. We have Dr. Kobayashi, Hisataka Kobayashi, Chief Scientist, Senior Investigator in the Molecular Imaging Program, National Cancer Institute, NIH. Last but not least, from SanBio Inc., we have CEO and SanBio Company Limited, the Keita Mori. Mr. Mori, please. Without further ado, the microphone is over to you, Mr. Kushida, please. Welcome to this session 1. Allow me to expand on the objectives behind the session, the depth and width of the content, and also we should be able to find the energy source unexpectedly, and also at the same time we would like to try to address specific issues in this field. That's the mission given to us. Sorry, you are located far away from me. Medical innovation is the theme given to us. Okay, and how we can maintain in her life our most important valuable asset. Actually, innovations are taking place and caused by these panelists, and that itself, and of course, sounds quite exciting. But actually, within NEST, of course, there are so many other themes. For example, Silicon Valley and how we can leverage use of Silicon Valley. Actually, we are well connected, more than you may imagine. And we would like to have further extended connectivity between Japan and Silicon Valley, how we can use Silicon Valley. And also we'd like to look into the regulations of Uber and Airbnb on some of the cases people are paying attention to how the regulation can help us. Actually, there has been the revision of the pharmaceutical affairs Japan. Thanks to this revision here in Japan, actually it is believed that Japan should be able to lead this the generative medical field ahead of Japan. Actually, this was news to me. But that is a really nice thing for us to know, and we should be able to find potential leadership areas, and there could be a lot of the reasons, and you may believe that it is going to be rather difficult. Oh, come on, we are having a new pharmaceutical affairs law, and we should be able to go for it. And thirdly, how Japan should face up to the rest of the world. Japan should be able to enter into all these geos and markets, how Japan can actually develop really good relationship between Japan and the rest of the world, and also the human capital and issues in the government side and also business side. And sometimes there's a concern that human brains are going to leave Japan. No, that's not the case. We would like to come up with a really good cycle in which all these human resources can be put into what we call the cyclical trend. Last year, we had from IPS, Global Novel and IPS, the research. Actually, we have received a video message from Dr. Yamanaka. Without further ado, please play the video. This is Senior Yamanaka, and head of the IP, the Stem Cell Research Institute at Kyoto University. Japanese population is aging and becoming less fertile and way ahead of the rest of the world. This is a fact, isn't it? Therefore, the healthcare innovation for Japan goes beyond its potential explosive potential factor. It goes beyond that. Without this medical innovation, Japan simply cannot survive. In a nutshell, I strongly believe what I said just in front of you. That's the healthcare innovation, medical innovation compared with an IT or the artificial intelligence innovations, I think there could be big differences. That is to say that this is going to be a challenge, and the risk factors are going to need to be borne by researchers and also by organizations, businesses, but also we have to ask patients to bear those risk factors. This is the biggest difference compared with other innovations in IT or the AI. With that point in mind, we need to be able to strike good balance between the benefits and the risk factors on the side of patients. This is going to be quite critical going forward. And that said, and of course, we are now having deep engagement in an IPS and cell research activities, and we would like to actually create something valuable in the form of generative medicine or the new drugs. We are making our best efforts day in and day out, and the cells out of the IPS and cells are going to be transported into the patients. And as of today, I simply cannot say that we simply cannot guarantee that it is going to be cancer-free situations, even though we are making tremendous efforts. So when we should be able to start the clinical studies, clinical trials, and actually we are actually have to come to our bold decision soon whether we should go for it or not. This is very important because Japan has a unique culture where when you succeeded, you are going to receive a big applause, but if you failed, you are going to be crushed to death, so to speak. So this is a very unique cultural aspect to Japan. Under those situations, actually, we are trying to be courageous enough to go forward with our courage. Please join us to create those very important healthcare medical innovations coming out of Japan, which is going to be quite unprecedented in its nature.
ありがとうございました。
Thank you. We have Dr. Kagimoto, Dr. Mori, and Dr. Kobayashi, and I would like to receive presentations actually in this order, and I would like to ask you guys to introduce yourself before you make a presentation one by one. Dr. Kagimoto first, please.
株式会社ヘリオス
Thank you. I'm Kagimoto, president of Healios KK. I would like to offer discussion topics by way of introducing our businesses. With science and technology, as Professor Yamanaka was saying, a variety of medical innovations and inventions are taking place daily now, not just iPS cells. Healios is committed to make full use of them with the enrichment of living as our company mission. The first about our history. Healios was founded in 2011. Professor Shinya Yamanaka received Nobel Prize in 2012, and in 2014, RIKEN, the Institute of Physical and Chemical Research, launched the world's first clinical study using IP cells. After 17 months, the patient has recovered to the extent she does not need medication anymore. I will explain this more later. In June of last year, Healios was listed on the Tokyo Stock Exchange market Mothers. Japan's aging is progressing. In 2010, a quarter of its population was at the age of 65 or above. It will be one-third by 2050, an unprecedented condition in the world. In such a situation, how can Japan excel and take advantage of its strengths? In the area of medicine, we've had low molecular weight drugs as one of its categories. Bufferin for headache is a powder drug of this type. In recent years, protein preparation and antibody drugs came to take the lead, and protein preparation alone constitutes a market of trillions of yen in size. The next generation of medicine is regenerative and cell-based drugs. Fortunately, it was in Japan where iPS cells were invented. They are considered to play the core role in this category. Aside from the iPS cell, Japan also has many other regenerative medicine technologies as well. It is remarkable that Japan is taking the lead in these areas and can liven up itself with regenerative medicine. We can sense that the opportunity is opening up now. In the light of the iPS cell invention and aging of the Japanese population, one of the strictest regulations, the Japan's Pharmaceutical Affairs Law, has been revised. The process of clinical trials and the new drug marketing start has been very time-consuming, requiring roughly 7 to 10 years. This process is expected to be cut down to 2 to 3 years. Arguably, the most conservative healthcare regulation in the world changed its course drastically, with a new law introduced 2 years ago, allowing 2 new drugs launched in the market last year. How will iPS cell and other regenerative medicine develop further? We believe there are 3 domains to watch. One is around somatic stem cells. Healios has technology in this area for acute stroke, and President Mori's SanBio is also providing a somatic stem cell-based therapy for chronic stroke. The centerpiece of all these is the iPSC regenerative medicine. Healios is working on that, as well as a 3-dimensional organ treatment, which I will describe later. The idea of iPS therapy is quite simple. When we were born, we are very healthy. But as we age, we contract different diseases. Why? Ultimately, it is because the cells in our body are aging to fail. The failure of cells in eyes causes AMD, that of pancreatic cells causes diabetes. It's a matter of the location of the cells that fail. If so, wouldn't the replacing of those cells with iPS cell-derived fresh cells provide the radical cure? This is the basic idea of iPS cell-based treatment. Now, 17 months after the cell administration and recon, its cells are healthy and the patient experiences no recurrences. Now, the next technological step is to generate from the beginning a whole range of cells and organs using a technology called organ unlager or organ bud, which we created ourselves in mother's womb. We are developing this throughout the world. So this was a brief introduction of the iPS technology of Healios and the current status of regenerative medicine. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, there are a lot of things I would like to ask you, but let's ask Mori-san to present his case as well. My name is Keita Mori of SanBio, and I first would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be at this occasion and a very energetic event. And I believe that this event started from a kind of an IT-oriented event. So I may not be in the main course of this event, but the bioscience is very healthy at the moment, so to say. And so that's why I'm here to present what's going on there. And the first simple self-introduction, I have started a venture company, SanBio, 15 years ago in the area of regenerative medicine. And what triggered me is that when I left the Kirin company, I started giving some thoughts to that. As Kishida-san mentioned, that I wanted to get some experience in the venture companies. I went to San Francisco in California, and San Francisco's motel, I was putting together a resume, CV, and sending resume to find opportunities at venture companies. And I participated in Zuma, one of the venture companies there. And in 2001, I thought it was timely to start my own company, SanBio. What is SanBio? SanBio is in the area of regenerative medicine and is a global company from Japan. They're trying to create a new future by providing regenerative cells as pharmaceuticals. And I wanted to provide regenerative medicine to everybody in the world. For that purpose, we need to be able to mass produce a quality regenerative cells. And this is a very challenging endeavor, and we are one of the few which actually succeeded in that. And today, we'll be talking about innovation and especially human resources. And this is our development organization, so to say. I think we believe that we have the best organization in the world, and the founding scientist is the Professor Hideyuki Okano, Dean of Keio Medical School, and actual development and clinical studies, and we have the world's first pioneers, Daniel Bates, Chief Medical Officer, and Michael McGrogan also helping us for R&D and production, respectively, and the central nervous system diseases, and that really it means brain, spinal cord, and eyes are the areas of our target. And this is an area for the last 100 years. It's been commonly known that the brain doesn't regenerate, so there's hardly any good drug. So it's a very challenging domain and critical domain. If we bring a regenerative medicine to this, and now we can actually regenerate brain, and our time is there. And so when can we get there? And it's good to hear all these dreams, but in fact, in Japan, in the U.S., we have already completed a clinical trial in the U.S., and we actually have patients who have improved substantially. And I hope you will enjoy this video, which hopefully reflects our spirit. And regenerative medicine is getting a lot of attention as the medicine of the future. And our SanBio's regenerative medicine maximizes the power of a self-renewal capacity we all have, and we will restore and recover the lost functions, and has infinite potential. We want to create something new, and we create a new field. That's why I started SanBio. And with the SanBio's R&D, some of the diseases which were believed to have been no cure is now receiving the possibility of new therapies.
Really rare. Before, there was always pain in my shoulder, and then when I had my surgery, I mean, it went like this, and my leg was stronger, and my speech was instantly better. It's the best thing I could have done.
Ever since I first learned about an axolotl's ability to regenerate an entire limb, I've been fascinated by regenerative medicine. What if we could tap into a human being's capacity to regenerate?
This year, I've got more mobility out of my arm and my hand, and I'm able to lift my foot for the first time up off the floor and flex my instep, I guess, crunch my toes, and so I know that means there's more flexibility in my foot. It's been 2 years now, and I still have hope in improving more.
The potential of regenerative medicine is just now being realized. Challenges for large-scale production of clinical material and making the translation from research technology to the clinic is challenging.
In Japan, in 2014, new pharmaceutical law is brought into effectiveness, and now we can get approval in the shortest period in the world. In the past, the regeneration of brain was believed to be impossible. We have invited the authorities in this area and carrying out our R&D.
That had the unique distinction of the first and only approval of an allogeneic cell therapy by the FDA. My hope is to leverage that experience here at SanBio.
Regenerative medicine is dependent upon the ability to produce clinical material to demonstrate proof of concept. At SanBio, we have produced our SB623 clinical product and completed our phase 1 study and have large-scale production material for our phase 2 trial.
SanBio as a team is trying to become the global leader in the regenerative cell drugs. And that is with the hope that we can bring the needed drugs to everybody, all the patients in the world. So with the people who couldn't walk anymore or move their bodies with the stroke for a number of years, they are now recovering. And improving. In the US, we are currently about to get into the phase 2B clinical development and working with some of the major pharmaceutical companies in the US. And in California and Japan, we have bases. In the past, California was our base. And with the revision of the pharmaceutical law 2 years ago in Japan, we were convinced that Japan will be the center of excellence in the world. And it just last year, Ministry of Health and Welfare gave us the approval to start our clinical trial. And so we are preparing to bring drugs to Japanese patients. Thank you very much. It's great.
Kagimoto-san, Mori-san, actually, you started these operations as the startups, and of course, I'm not an expert in this field. And usually, those research activities are going to be carried out by those researchers, wearing white, clothing. And again, next presentation will be made by the Dr. Kobayashi, but I can get to see really potential seeds and planted by you guys. Without further ado, Dr. Kobayashi, please. Well, allow me to stand up. I'm a researcher and I'm not a president, and unlike these two friends on the stage, and so I'm not good in making presentation, but bear with me. That said, actually, my technology goes to the treatment for cancers. Please look at this on the slide first. You know him, right? You know this artist, right? He was on the stage, and these two people actually are the members of the aspirin reactor. Actually, Mr. Mikitanen actually made his investment into an organization. Actually, you should have seen this the guy. But again, these three unknown the members with the aspirin reactor, and me started the startup and operation. Just for information. And what is this technology? And again, let's give you a summary. And Dr. Yamanaka is the god. And again, with the with this given to him, actually, with this wallet given to him, actually, he should be able to create the stem cells. Regenerative medicine. What is it? If something is missing inside the body, that is going to be added. So that is going to be addition, but we are different. If a cell is given to us, that cell is going to be broken within 60 seconds. That's what we do. So as far as our research goes, actually the theme is in cancers. Actually, extra things were created within the body. Say let's suppose that there are 100 items. So we have to subtract unneeded things. So 100 minus an x, and we have to be careful, smart enough not to actually get rid of too many. So we have to stay closer to 100 elements inside the body. So the doctor at the end, actually, is not now God. It's now he's acting as an angel. Well, allow me to expand on this slide. And you see actually introduced in the video. And allow me to play this video.
Involving near-infrared light. Photoimmunotherapy uses an antibody to which a photoabsorbing chemical is attached. The antibody photoabsorber conjugate is injected into a patient. It will travel through the bloodstream and eventually reach the site of the tumor. The conjugate will then leak out of permeable vessels near the tumor. It will bind to special receptors on the surface of cancer cells. Once the conjugate is bound to cancer cells, the photoabsorbing chemical can be specifically activated by near-infrared light. When the chemical has been activated, it causes immediate damage to the cell membrane. Water that is outside of the cell rushes into it, causing the cell to swell. Nearby cells without the special receptors will not be affected. Increased pressure within the swollen cell causes the membrane to burst, releasing intracellular contents such as proteins, DNA, and RNA. The cell then becomes smaller and shrunken in shape, a process known as necrosis. After treatment, the cell necrosis causes the tumor to shrink, creating spaces between the cells. The tumor will die and normal tissue will regrow in its place.
がんだけきっちり殺してやると、その
Photoimmunotherapy is a new form of
幹
cancer
細胞が残る
therapy
わけです。
that is
だ
highly
からこのようにリ
specific
ペ
for
アがうまく
cancer
いく。
cells and does not damage nearby normal cells. It is currently in clinical trials in patients with inoperable tumors.
まだ未完成の実はこのビデオを公開
Well, actually, officially, it is supposed to be released as of April, mid-April or after mid-April. That is why there's no subtitles. So what's going to happen when the light is irradiated, and as you see, this cell is going to get bloated. And actually, Dr. Shimomura actually back in 2008 received a Nobel Prize on this the research. And things are going to release out of this the cell, and what you see in this green color. Yes, this is one. This is already been covered in the video, and ultimately, this is what's going to take place. Actually, within 60 seconds, the cell is going to be destructed completely. It is going to get bloated, and it is going to be bombed, so to speak. So we should be able to destroy the cell in a very short period of time. So what's going to happen? Those the tumor cells are going to be killed, but the immune cells nearby are still alive. This is a very important point. So actually, the system is going to recognize that, and this is a dying cell, and an immature the cell is going to be maintained. Sorry, this is showing a mouse. And there are two tumors, and one the tumor has received the treatment, of course, and then that is gone. But untreated the cell actually is going to disappear in 2 days. That's what you see. And furthermore, down here, 4 tumors. Actually, metastasis is going to be the source of human beings and being killed. So let's suppose that there are 4 the tumors, and if one tumor cell is treated, then all the other tumors are going to become smaller. This is going to be the beauty out of this technique. Let me expand on the reason why. Once the tumor and cancer was destructed, then the immune is going to be created. So, of course, cancer is going to be different from one person to another person. So there is a kind of vis-a-vis the specific of the tumor cell, the immunity is going to be created, and also once the break is broken, then this cell, the immune cell, is going to treat all the cells, and also that is going to actually move around in the body, and all the tumor cells are supposed to be killed. And we started clinical trials, and we're now in the phase 1, and we have many patients covered. And actually, they have the tumors in the brains and heads and the necks. And of course, this the administration is going to be taking place for 2 hours injection. And then they go back home. Then coming back the next day. Actually, in just 5 or 10 minutes, radiation is going to take place. Then what's going to happen? We're now in phase 1. Of course, side effects is the most important item we need to look at. As of today, no side effects has been reported. Actually, FAJ asked us not to expose details. But again, we are actually seeing some patients actually recovering completely from their cancerous conditions. So this is an hour in a pit in the medical economy, and the economic aspects are going to be quite important. Well, the number of patients are going to be quite important here. And talking about the cancer, of course, cancer is going to be different depending upon the patient in question. But if we have to create a drug vis-a-vis the specific cancer, it is going to cost us too expensive. No way that we can spend 10 million per person. So 1 to 4, 1 to 6, and so cancer are having those profile. So we should be able to create a drug vis-a-vis the common one that is going to give us a good platform where we should be able to treat many patients. And at the same time, this master treatment as well as the cancer-specific treatment are going to be realized out of this model. In other words, the business should be able to actually make money, and also the patients are going to be able to be benefited out of this health-wise. Well, I have an honor to be with experts on the regenerative experts. Actually, this is what we have discussed with Dr. Yamanaka. And there are many challenges, and whether or not, in this process, whether or not the cancers are going to be created. Well, actually, my technique, my treatment, should be able to actually find those tumor locations, as shown by Dr. Mori. And let's assume that this is a liver, and actually this is regenerated in the liver on the cell, and we should be able to pick up just bad cells, and those bad cells are going to be killed. Then we should be able to end up with clean and healthy in the cells. So it is going to be the relationship between the additive and also the subtraction, and so we should be able to make a good friends between us and Dr. Yamanaka. Thank you.
ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much. So we hope I'm not even wearing tie, and you can loosen up your ties and have a casual atmosphere and still cover key points in our panel discussion. Having heard three presentations, in fact, every time I hear these presentations and how urgent it is to bring these technologies to the world, and startup companies are working, and in fact, Dr. Kobayashi is also working with startup. It's right now Silicon Valley offered a very conducive environment, but now with the revision of pharmaceutical law in Japan, that the Japanese environment condition has changed substantially. And Mori-san, you started your company in Silicon Valley. Now that the pharmaceutical laws revision and Japan can approve a new drug very quickly. So you came back to Japan, right? Yes. In 2001, I started up SanBio in 2001. I wanted to start up the company in Japan, but back then there was a very conservative governmental regulations of drugs. So as a business, I thought it was too difficult. So that's why I went to California to start our business. And I was very fortunate that 2 years ago, Japan all of a sudden became the best country for this area. If I were starting up a new company today, I will make sure that I'll do that in Japan. That's surprising. Dr. Kobayashi, could you explain your involvement with the startup? And when researchers develop something that has to be brought to the market eventually, there are different choices in the US. Using a startup is one, or use a mid-sized company, or work with large-sized company. Now, working with large-sized company is a very difficult because it's hard to tell who is the decision maker, and depending on the policy of the company, big company, it may or may not go through. But giving everything to startup is will at least guarantee that those handful of people will be dedicated to that. I'm working with a company called Aspirion in San Diego. And also, there's a difference in culture in West Coast and East Coast. And the West Coast startup go with the minimum requirement. But if there is something more needed, they will simply add more. In East Coast, and they tend to start with a full-scale company. And there are challenges involved in that. Once it becomes a full-fledged company, it may be good for funding, but whether the company will be dedicated for the direction of technology, that's maybe questionable. And for small company, funding may be challenged. And in our company, we are very fortunate that the Mikitani-san is helping us. So those are some of the things we should remember as characteristics of the different options, and in choosing which way to go. Thank you. Kagimoto-san, about 13 years ago, when I was a graduate student at Stanford, I met you back then, right? Yes. So since then, you've worked with Silicon Valley off and on. Yes. Personally, as a medical doctor, I was not happy with my career because I couldn't cure some of the patients I had. In 2009, I visited my friend at Stanford, and I started visiting bioventures in Silicon Valley. And year 2010, universities became more of independent business entity. And compared with back then, the entrepreneurs' quality and volume were quite different. In Japan, in the bio area, finally after 10 years, there are a number of people who have gained experience in running the business. So it has become an industry, I think. So what you're saying is that in the past, unless you were at Silicon Valley, in order to form a company, in order to get the funding, unless you're in the ecosystem physically, you couldn't make it. But now in Japan, you think that it's viable, and the big factor for that is a revision of pharmaceutical law. Now, do you think that the same thing can happen at different areas of Japanese economy? And if there are difficult areas, let's identify them and then let's change that. And because healthcare side, it has started rolling. And in fact, leading to the regenerative medicine. For example, in Silicon Valley, if a startup company is made with for regenerative medicine, and there is a very quick launch mechanism applied. Now in Japan, we can make it shorter, right? And does that improve our presence? Yes, we are now Japanese company. It used to be American company. And Kagimoto-san, you work with American company, right? And Mori-san, your company was founded in the U.S. and came back to Japan, right? And we work with a European and American companies. We have lots of pipelines, and there's some entry barrier for them to come into Japan. And inbound needs is what we are targeting at, to get the license and develop. And I think that's a very good synergy effect in that approach. And this is a small industry. We often communicate, and American companies and UK companies, they often ask, how is it in Japan? Are they interested in coming to Japan? And so they are eyeing on Japanese market. And so commercial drone flying out or getting into AI areas I hope, will also have that kind of a change in the market regulatory approach. And how Japanese will get into the field. For example, Kobayashi-san, you were in the U.S. For a long time. Was that a brain drain? You studied abroad, and you got the scholarship from the U.S. And so we kind of losing the precious brains. And a lot of people concerned of this kind of a brain drain. But Kobayashi-san, you did not cease to be a Japanese. You can still speak Japanese. And also, with the sponsor, Mikitani-san, you're expanding your research area. This is a kind of a circulatory effect, circulation. And you were doing your activities in the U.S. and came back to Japan. Kagimoto-san, you returned to Japan as well. So this, if you could give us your thoughts on that. My Japanese, my problem is I can only speak Osaka dialect. But joking aside, I myself left Japan and kept my identity. I think my identity as Japanese became even stronger when I went abroad, much stronger than when I stayed in Japan. And as a Japanese, I want to contribute back to Japan. I have a stronger feeling for that. And also, as a benefit of being able to speak Japanese with Mikitani-san, and I can work better with the other Japanese companies. Japanese technologies are very strong, and I can use them as weapons for us as I compete in the U.S. So as a final product, I'd like to contribute back to Japan. And also, I don't know if this is a good example, raise a flag, a Japanese flag in the U.S. soil, and versus the Chinese flag or Korean flag. And so as a Japanese, I believe that it became stronger when I went out of Japan. I think that's a very important point. And when you leave Japan, a lot of people think and worry that they will lose Japaneseness. So if we start teaching English from younger age, people are concerned that they will lose the Japanese identity. Well, if you go outside of Japan and you become you began to represent Japan. And I myself, I may not look totally Japanese, but seen from outside, being a Japanese, and you kind of develop, may not be patriotism, but you become fond of your own country more. Mori-san, you've been in Silicon Valley for a long time.
Yes, I happen to love Japan to begin with. Yes, no, you're right. We had a March 11 or earthquake and a tsunami, and actually, lots of people actually rushed to these places, working as volunteers. Actually, I was quite happy as to what I was observing there. Well, from Japanese perspective, of course, those smart and brains live in Japan, but actually in the USA and in Silicon Valley, they're excellent Korean people, Indian people, Chinese people, of course, and Japanese people, and some of them are going to stay, and some of them, are going back to their native countries. I think it is a kind of process. Out of that, an advancement is going to take place. Staying in Silicon Valley and looking at in history as well. Actually, Silicon Valley consists of something really good, coming from many parts of the world. For example, the person from India, this person learns a lot of things, and then goes back to the Indian. Actually, he should be able to contribute a lot to the economy and the society. And that goes to the Chinese people, Korean people. However, that has not been necessarily the case among the Japanese people. Now, we're talking about the startups, and actually, even in this medical field, and we're talking about the startups, and this seems to be a very important mechanism. I think this is going to benefit both parties, so to speak. Kagimoto-san, do you have anything to say? May I look at a different angle? Well, when it comes to the IPS and actual applied research and also innovation, of course, those things are taking place, in many places globally. But staying here in Japan, there is no set of technologies which can be completed. And actually, in Japan, the same diseases, illnesses, and taking place globally. Why not have access to the enabling technologies and available in other markets, in other countries? I think this is one of the beauties we should be able to leverage actually in this biotechnology field, in the medical field. Well, I think at stake is our survival, and actually, it is going to take a lot of time and effort to get approval for the new drug. So it's time for us to actually go beyond Japan. And we need to have the kind of overall global system, and in order to reduce cost, reduce efforts. I tend to agree to that. I think there are good examples taking place, but we still have a long way to go in terms of the changes, in terms of transformation. And we are talking about the theme of the human capital and circulation. We are hoping that those excellent Japanese people will find Japan attractive, so that they will come back. So in order to actually create those kind of situations, what's missing? What will be the important points? And Dr. Kobayashi, please. Yes. The universities in the U.S. Or the research organizations actually, they are very close to businesses in a nutshell. In other words, they have their own research in funds, and the researchers are going to be recruited and out of that fund, and they have their own strategy. How about Japan? Well, again, this is having to do with the regulation. Actually, it is the state and the country which has the large wallet. And so under those circumstances, it's rather difficult for Japanese universities to recruit the people out of their own pocket. So this seems to be the basic difference between Japan and the rest of the world, particularly the U.S. So maybe this is one of the areas maybe we need to address at a deeper level in order to make Japan a lot more attractive. Actually, large in the research organizations rather than stable has lots of money. But actually, when it comes to the agility and speed, be it biotechnology, if they have to actually they make contributions to the businesses. Actually, they have to be able to make contributions to the sake of to the human beings. Again, the owner of the money and the funds of the fund owner is the central government and not the universities. Maybe this is one of the areas we have to address. Well, that is quite interesting. Maybe what kind of bottlenecks would you say? What are the important things? And we need to be careful, and particularly in these areas, we have to be careful. We have to be quick in addressing these issues. 2 years ago, we are lucky enough because the Japanese government decided to change the pharmaceutical affairs law, and that is going to be good. That was a good start. Any other specific suggestion? Well, this revised in the law actually probably once in every 50 years, once in centennial years actually. So that was really a super big hit, a home run. And so now I'm quite grateful for the Japanese government. But again, this is just a framework. So, what's promised needs to be executed. This could be one of the basic differences between Japan and the US, Japan and the USA. Well, not big differences. When it comes to the venture activities, actually, lots of the games actually are going to be in practice by the American players. I think Japan probably is quite similar in this regard to the American people compared with the Asian people. But again, American players seem to be ahead of the Japanese players. So it is going to take lots of practices and plays and games. I think that is going to be quite more important for Japanese people to actually catch up with the American counterparts. So why not extend the kind of engagement, kind of relationship with tons of the businesses? Regenerative, the regulation is taking place in the regenerative medical field, but also the same thing should take place in other domains as well. That's one thing if we're successful in the USA, it should be less challenging to bring it to Japan. I don't know how to say it but properly. Again, FDA approved this, and FDA approved this, and then FDA approved it, then it is going to be less difficult for us to bring the same thing to Japan. So, but again, the FDA versus Japanese regulation, probably the height of the wall should be lowered. Well, thanks to the revised law, actually, Japan seems to be ahead of the rest of the world, ahead of the USA. I tend to agree to that. Well, I'm quite close to the initiation of Mr. Mori. Actually, clinical trials, and actually 7 years and 10 years, actually, that has been shortened. If that's the case, actually, reinvestment cycle is going to be quite shortened. In other words, they should be able to find really a positive growth curve. And whether or not they can become a de facto standard, and if they can become a de facto standard, they should be able to make a further investment into new areas. So within 5 years, within 10 years, the Japanese their organization should be successful. Otherwise, we're going to fail. Another the obstacle, working in the Silicon Valley, actually, it is going to be the kind of the world and competition. Whatever the domains and IoT and fintech, and actually the front runners in there. So actually, they are the front runners in this international competition, international league. However, that is not necessarily the case here in Japan. When it comes to the research activities, the top-notch researchers are not going to find Japan as a country for them to work. Not that attractive. And the visa is another issue, or probably compared with Japan. Of course, it's not that easy to get a visa, but much less difficult compared with the situations in Japan. So I think we need to be able to actually create all these positive things in order to generate and build an international team of the smart brains. This could be one of the things we could begin with. Any further advice? Any other thoughts? I think winners are going to take all. That is going to be the world of technology. So the winner is going to take them all. So this is the thing we have to fully understand. For example, you are IPS researchers actually. Now Japan actually became the front runner thanks to the award given to us. So I think this is an area standing out. So why not further advance this advancement and what you talked about, international excellent teams. But again, winners is going to take them all. What international team, I think, may make it less difficult to win ultimately in the end. So questions going to the two other people. Actually, Japanese population becoming Asian much faster, and with less number of the children. And of course, in the rest of the world, of course, is following Japan as a kind of pattern. It is going to matter of the time. So a bit European nations and also Caucasian societies and are following the path of Japanese aging process. So if that's the case, Japan should be able to find solutions to this phenomenon, and that is going to give us good opportunities and actually be being a winner ahead of the rest of the world.
I think you're exactly right. What we're doing is that we work a lot of brain cell, like a stroke or Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease. Those cells die out when people get aged. So when we have many aged people, we can do trials, and then so it's kind of advantage for us to commercialize. The same goes true with here and bio. There is hardly any difference, ratio difference. So if we can, in fact, do the trial in Japan quick, and we can basically 10 times more market out there, and so. IP has become very important globally, right? Is there anything you can share? And one first company I worked for 7 years ago on my birthday, and the IP the company had, and we had to go to Hague, and from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock, if we lose any one of the four cases, we would lose all the property. And so we were fortunate that we were able to defend them. But there are a lot of patents for cell side. We can have a more stable portfolio, but there's always a risk, and it's very important to make sure that we should be able to protect it. And if we can, that's very viable for the world. And so you have to protect in certain area where you want to break it open, and you should do it that way too. So it will kill the open innovation. But you do have that kind of stories, right, Kagimoto-san? Is there any people who have that kind of experience? And I do think we'll see more of those people with that kind of experience. I think we need to see more people, both people and number and the quality and quantity both. And Silicon Valley, there are many people. So that's in Japan that it's always going to remain as the government's issue. But the Silicon Valley, I think it's a more organic approach is possible with a bigger base. So there are a lot of topics came out, starting out from the medical field ventures. And people in the audience, we have some time for Q&A. And you can ask questions. You can go back to the presentation as well. And the questions, make sure they are questions. And keep the questions short, please, if you ask. While we're waiting, anything you want to say? Any panelists? Any message you are dying to communicate. And I'd like to add some comments to what I said earlier, that there are more yellows, so to say, in the world. So in Japan, if you can succeed in clinical trial, I think it can maximize our market success as well too. That's one of the reasons why we should base in Asia. I work closely with Singaporean parties, and if we can provide treatment to the yellow, and it can be a very viable business in the world. I see.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the discussion. I have a question about another innovation, which is DNA self-sampling and self-analysis. I wonder what the panel's feeling is about this more consumer-oriented medical innovation.
Let's collect several questions. 質問複数集めましょう。
I will, excuse me, I'll be speaking in Japanese. I'm a student and have no knowledge of healthcare or medicine. Regarding the regenerative medicine, you said you can't reproduce brains. But in the past, all we could do was simply give painkiller. In sometimes a tendon maybe cut, is regenerative medicine can get the tendon back after it is broken. Let's get another question. The person way in the corner at the edge. I'm sorry, I can't really see the audience well. For the spinal cord injury, I think there was a mention on the slide. I want to ask a question about that. I myself have experienced the injury to spinal cord, and I also know a number of people, in fact, who couldn't recover from such injury, and they are looking for the speed development of the treatment out of iPS cells, and the spinal cord injuries after long lapse. Do you think they are still being able to be treated? If you have questions. The last question was the easiest for me. I think Dainihon Sumitomo is working, pharmaceutical is working with a doctor in Keio, and I believe that they are preparing for the clinical trial, and so I hope that will materialize soon. And also, after you injure spinal cord, within 2 to 3 weeks is the kind of a window a lot of players are targeting at. But in the world, there is an effort to cure people who incurred spinal cord injury years back, and we are one of them, and we think it's possible, yes.
I think that DNA analysis is very important for selecting the patient. President Obama is actually declare the precision medicine. The precision medicine is more accurately we're gonna treat the patient group, some certain patient group. So when we're gonna select the patient at that time, we really need to know the information about the patient. So DNA analysis can be the very potential tool to grouping the patient. So I think that based on that's a very important basis of the precision medicine.
ありがとうございます。手元の時計残り50秒でロスタイムなし。
We have only 50 more seconds and no extension. And finally, is there any message and let's say message to the potential entrepreneurs or the areas you're interested in. And the regenerative medicine is an area which came up in Japan, and it will expand. And other than that, unless we can get the defect, we won't be able to get the foreign currencies, and that's what we want to do. In Japan, we want to continue on. That's the biggest hope we have. And I will continue speaking Japanese. I like to provide our medicine to all the patients in the world. Well, thank you very much for everybody for your attention.